Dear Venerable Sisters and Brothers, Dhamma friends, we are going to start today's Dhamma talk. May everyone settle and consent 3 times with sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhasse. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhasse. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhasse. Viññānaṁ anattā viññānaṁ caidang bhikkhave attā abhavissa naidang viññānaṁ āvādāya saṅvattiyanti. Dear Dhamma friends, today is the 11th day. We have taken this main sutta known as Ananta Lakkana Sutta, and based upon that we have delivered so far 10 talks. Today is the 11th one, and as far as the early part of the particular discourse, Ananta Lakkana Sutta, the Buddha deals with 5 aggregates. So one by one we have now reached the 5th one, the last one, known as Vijnana, and in the other parts of the literal works, it's in Buddhist Theravada specifically. Literature, it is synonym with the Chitta, Mana, Mano and Vijnana are recognized as synonyms in a broader context. In English literature, it has been translated as consciousness. There are a lot of arguments as to whether this term consciousness is really given the translation of what you find in the Tipitaka or in the Buddhist Theravada literature. But anyway, now with long seasoning, that term has been fairly accepted as the translation of the term Vijnana. And as far as the anatta, the non-self characteristics are concerned, this idea, the self or non-self or characteristics of self and the characteristic of the non-self has been subject matter even before the emergence of the Buddha. And in the early Buddhist literature, before the full enlightenment of the Buddha, some early Hinduistic and other literature, there are some kind of a recognition parallel to this 5 aggregates: the materiality, the feelings, the perception, and volitional activities, and consciousness. And some were managed to understand the materiality, specifically the most gross, concrete part. Easily you can disprove as to it as no any kind of characteristic towards atta, because it is physics. And some went further into the feelings also so quickly changing, giving rise to each other, the pleasure and the pain. So there is no consistency and controllability. Some manage to look the feeling also with no much of an essence, no pith, no governability, and found difficult to see the perception and the volition together with this consciousness. But there were some sharp, quick-wit people to understand this perception, sanya, itself is very volatile, so therefore found very difficult to see an essence in it. So they were ready to argue there won't be any kind of atta in the or self-characteristic, self-like characteristic in consciousness, the perception. And then some went even below to the will, to the motivation, to the volitional activities, they also won't have such a foundation to attribute the atta. But all agreed the vijnana, the consciousness is the core issue. So therefore they came like kosha. Kosha means the sheath. Outermost one is the materiality, and protected by that, inside there is a sheath of feelings, and protected by feeling there's a perception as a sheath, and then volitional, and at last, just like a valuable thing put in a casket, the vijnana is the essence, and that is the what transmigrating from one soul to the one life to the other. So therefore all agreed the vijnana is the one, the essential core, and that is worth attributing this atta. But the radical reflection, the kind of against the grain kind of argumenting, the Buddha managed to even to disprove this attribution also. But to reach in practical sense, still the Buddha says, if you take this example of sheets, outermost one is the materiality, and then the feeling, and then the perception, and then the volitional activities of fabrication, mental fabrication and preparation, and underneath there is a vijnana. With that kind of explanation, the way the Buddha reached this Ananta concept is, starting from the materiality, he slowly disprove each other, so that as and when the idea of attributing self to the materiality has been weakened, it gives a conducive condition one to see the feeling also have same weaknesses, so you can disprove feeling also have no self characteristics, and then perception, volition. Whenever someone managed to see these outermost sheets are weaker, ultimately vijnana, the consciousness, become vulnerable, and then one can easily catch the crux of the issue, and with that kind of prepared mind, one can easily understand or get the confidence. Vijnana itself do not have that kind of self or pit or any essence. So when I was in Burma, that Pandita Vivansa Sayadaw, he gave yet another way of explaining the same thing. He told that in world mafia organizations, there are a lot of circles available. Outermost one is the one doing all the misbehavior thing, or transgression, or stress passing of the existing law. So therefore, whenever Interpol or local police going to catch any person doing drug trafficking or whatever may be, mafia or trafficking of weapons and kind of thing, at most you will catch the outermost person. He is just a mercenary, or he is a hired labor. So whatever you going to catch, you never can understand what is the mechanism, what is the main person responsible. And even these hired people, they do not know the organization. So therefore you catch them and punish them and kill them, whatever it may be, no impact to the organization as such, because it is being really well planned. So what you can do is catch as much as possible people, those who have transgressed and violated the rules, and only you can get is to get the clues or information from where did the order came, and from where to where the trafficking happen, who is going to pay you, and all the kind of information will give kind of a picture as to what are the next layer of supervisors taking or carried out the orders. And after long investigation only, you can go into the inner one layer, one step inner supervisors, and after catching so much only, you can understand who is going to give the orders for that kind of supervisors. And the organization is functioning in such a way, they do not know. So catching as much as possible, you can go to the person who is executing the order, and then you can go to the directors, and once everything catch, then only you can expose the main culprit. Main culprit never committed any mistake. They never exposed to the society, and it's well protected. Whatever may be the information, it has been protected in such a way, no one can understand how the mechanism is working. So, taken this as an example, the police or criminal investigation department must not be rushing, they must not be worked up with each person they are going to catch. Each person going to catch, going to give a kind of information about the mechanism, about the organization, and about how the orders are being carried out, and they are well paid, and simply they don't have information. So that is how you have to go there, and ultimately when and where the police can catch the main person, and if the case has been taken to the court, if it's the natural justice going to come, reasonable the judge definitely will give the biggest punishment for the main culprit. Not the people, those who have done the criminals, the wrong things, but the main person giving the opinion. The main culprit is the person in the middle who is functioning so that all the organization is running. And most funny thing is, whenever the police or criminal investigation department if they manage to get the main crux, the main culprit, no one will understand. He will be one of the most senior citizens in the society, or maybe the chief of the police person, or CID chief. He is the one, he is really organizer, he is the one doing he is the main culprit. So mere exposure itself is enough for such a person to accept without any punishment, because that is how the main culprit is behaving. In the normal society, he is happy like a full gentleman, but as far as the mafia organization is concerned, it is most simply it is the main culprit, giving almost all the opinion. Likewise, the vijnana, till you understand in its proper shape, in the proper situation, no one will find the vijnana is doing so much of infliction, so much inflicting suffering to oneself, because throughout our life, what we tried was to facilitate vijnana, fertilize vijnana, nourish vijnana, thinking that is the most respectable thing that is attributed with atta, and supporting. And ultimately that is the very thing giving this perpetuation, and ultimately the main energy for this vortex. So when it is rotating right round, it has so much of momentum, hardly any person can cross to the other side. But the best thing you have to do is slowly weakening other aggregates, namely the materiality and feeling, perception, volitional activity. Then only you can see the normal functions of the vijnana and how much it is responsible for this perpetuation of the samsaric journey and continuing uninterrupted inflicting suffering. And whenever you see it, simply you will get humiliated how much you have so far nourished it, how much you have facilitated it. So therefore, after seeing the picture in its proper proportion, very difficult for the sentient beings to understand how much the vijnana is inflicting suffering. So therefore, Buddha has given the vijnana mayupama. It is like a magician. You pay for and it is amusing you, but ultimately what all about is cheating, camouflage, and just a magic show. But the person who is paying for him is get amused by ultimately end up with this magic show. And so therefore to see the magic show as a magic show ultimately humiliate the audience. So Buddha he managed to see through it, and that is how he presented these 5 aggregates, starting from materiality and going into this vijnana, slowly weakening. And once you weaken, once the vijnana is being cornered, once the vijnana is being isolated, then you find it is easy to read and understand the teaching of the Buddha, rather than you with the full-fledged activated vijnana. So therefore, as a beginner, before you start with Satipatthana or establishment of mindfulness, and before you have any acquaintance with the teaching, it appears like a full solid thing, hardly breakable. It appears like a very solid continuity. But that is the starting point for any person. So while you are studying and meditating, slowly when the mindfulness is going to get the momentum, you have to, in uninterrupted way, continue with the same, and slowly, you can weaken it. And once weaken, you develop the confidence to see through it, and just mere seeing through is enough for the total understanding. It is not the matter of getting rid of vijnana. It is called vijnana. Vijnana you have to comprehend as such. It is not to conquering it. It is not to getting rid of it. Just see how much it is driven by underlying tendencies and influxes, and ultimately leading to suffering. So that is how you have to get the picture at the beginning, and you have to continue with this mindfulness to go deep into this, according to the 5 aggregates. So in that sense, in a general rational presentation, basically vijnana has 3 kind of equilibriums. The outermost one, or full-fledged vijnana, or vijnana as such, it is being covered, the outer layer, it is called supatithita vijnana or indriya-baddha vijnana. That is means it is always related to one of your faculties. It is connected with your eye, or ear, or nose, or tongue, or your body, or thinking. So vijnana is very busy as far as you are unmindful, jumping from one to the other, and so quickly, so swiftly, you feel like at a time you have all the 6 faculties are working. That is how you develop myself. That is how you get the boundary. I can see, I can hear, I can smell, I can touch, I can feel, I can think. So much so it is working in such a fast way, hardly one can understand. Only one faculty is working at a time, but due to its quick shifting movements, it gives a picture like as if all the six are working at a given time. So in order to break that, you have to slow down the activities and increase the amount of mindfulness. Otherwise, for example, a greedy and hungry person, when getting his share, the plate, and start to keep on eating and swallowing, morsel after morsel, hardly he can understand the tastes, because he is eating very fast. And then ultimately ending up with the indigestion and absorption of the nutrients also affected. But instead, if you are eating one morsel, chewing very good, enough, and then swallowing, you get enough chances to see six tastes. Maybe the bitter taste, the sweet, and heat, salt, astringent, and all the kind of thing. But if you are swallowing all without much chewing and without macerating, you see all the tastes. And ultimately, if you are chewing enough, you will never end up with diabetics. The whole diabetic problem is solved at the mouth. If you enough chewing, if you are adding enough saliva, tiling, the first digestion of the sugar start with the mouth, but if you are quickly swallowing, it go and put into the acid base, then the tiling action is completely stopped. So more you keep the morsel in the mouth, the digestion of carbohydrate and turning into sugar happens, and then the rest, oil and the fat and the protein, easily digested in the stomach. So likewise, if you are a greedy person or sentient being with so much of sensual feeling, changing from seeing, hearing, smelling, touching, and all the kind of thing, or without or with less amount of mindfulness, it is like you are swallowing too much without much of chewing. So therefore, the brain or the mind in the other sense find very difficult to handle so much of information. So in the meditating, in a retreat, it says slow down little and do one thing at a time, and that done well. This is very difficult to justify because we find we can't fulfill our task. So much of multitasking we have, whatever the way we perform, even within the 18 hours, sometimes 16 to 18 hours of the day, still there is a backlog. So therefore you are in such a rush, there is no chance to slow down. Therefore, you have to take a rest and go to a meditation center. When you go there, you will be asked to just slow down. While you are eating, don't talk. While you are eating, don't do other tasks. Eat it and to chew it, and very slowly you do it. When you are walking, when you do any other task, then slow down. Let the mindfulness to track one of the 6 channels. If you are seeing, be aware that you are seeing. If you are listening, be aware that you are listening and smelling, tasting and touching and thinking. So whenever the moment you can see these 6 channels, then only one day you will understand when one thing is dominating, all the others are being rejected. That is a great discovery or understanding. Even though these all 6 channels appear to be working together, they are so swift and your mindfulness is so weak, you taken it to be granted, this myself is having all the 6 limbs, they are working together. But whenever you slow down, you lose that integral collective idea. That is why slow life appear very boring. You are very happy with action-packed, multidimensional and multitasking thing, and you find that you are a very important person in the society. So therefore, how can I meditate, because I have so much of work to be performed. But at the deathbed, what is going to take, what will come in refuge of you, because you will be just like a candle burning from the both the ends. And it is not exhausted due to the proper way of burning, it is melting and wasting. So therefore, better to have 1 wick and burn it, and then it has a long lasting. The burning can lead to light, but burning both the ends, ultimately you miss the bus to understand this. So whenever you can manage to see only one thing happening at a time, then you will see whatever the thing the Vijnana has taken, it is you are being so inundated, you are being so absorbed into that, you make complete world out of whatever you see, or whatever you hear, whatever you smell, whatever you taste, whatever you touch and think. So you have no chance to understand you are now in a partial truth. All the others are not working. So while in meditation, for example, in walking, you are supposed to see the touch. The touch means the tactile sensation of the body, contact with yet another surface. And when you are observing, you find how difficult for you to keep the track with just only the touch. While it is happening, a lot of listening or seeing or any other bodily movements and air movements, everything come and distract you. Therefore, you find it is very difficult to keep the track with left leg and the right leg, and therefore consider all the other secondary objects as a kind of a distraction. So therefore, I would say, out of the newcomers, more than 90% give up meditation because they find very difficult to keep the track with one channel. So they complain, how can I meditate? I can't keep it in breath and out breath. I can't keep my mind with rising and falling. I can't keep with the left leg and right leg. It is being so much of distractions. So that is the case. That is not, no one will start with that clarity. So with diligent effort and precise aiming, you have to isolate the primary object. That does not mean others are not available. That is only you give the priority to the primary object. So by keeping the primary object in view with, one will develop the confidence. Long after long striving, you can isolate. I can see left leg to right leg to left leg to right leg, or in-breath to out-breath to in-breath. The continuity happens. So when it happens, as far as you are going to recognize the primary object, with all the other things will be slowly fading off, and they will be background thoughts and background feelings, but still you can keep it. And that is the point you can make sure your consciousness is now dealing with only one channel at a time. That you can keep the track with in-breath and out. You can keep the track with in-breath and out. You can keep the track with left leg, the right leg. And while eating, you can keep the track with either taste or all the activities involved. So the Buddha, categorically, he says, when you go forward, come back, stretching your arm, bending your arm, looking sideways, looking forward, and while you are taking the robes, while you are using your ball, and all the activities, once you isolated, It has an electric effect. For example, whenever you get pure copper, its conductivity is superb. Whenever the copper is been mixed up with zinc or something like that, wherever two ions are going together, there's a friction, there's a turmoil, there's a vortex. Exactly the way mindfulness, the concentration, and all the beautiful mental factors will be very conducive as far as you can keep the track with single object. But that is not the Nibbana. That is not the ultimatum. This is just a preparation of the ground. And while observing this one single object, for example, the primary object, later you will understand while you are keeping the track with the primary object, still you can listen. Still you can smell. Still you can touch. Still you can think. Or thoughts can happen. But still you keep an isolated, or you can be secured and make sure the confidence, the continuity is happening. So at the beginning I find it is difficult, of course, but with the more and more practice, you will understand as far as you have the priority for the primary object, that does not indicate only that is available. All the others are available, so slowly you can accommodate while external distracting sounds, still you can have kind of a continuity of the mindfulness with the in-breath and out-breath. While there is some other bodily sensations, still you can keep the continuity of the mindfulness, and there may be some thinking, but still can understand. After a while you will develop such a state, all these things are available, but you know how to select the priority and go with the primary object, and there you develop kind of an equanimity, accommodating others, but you know your priority. And that is the most lacking thing in the world. That is what you call management technique. For the management technique, you must understand what is the most priority. You keep the finger in it, and then others will happen very nicely. Instead, you do not understand what is priority and you are going to do the other subordinary things, then the whole management system will be upset. So, present day, whatever the education, whatever the technical information, know-how we have, the management techniques or managerial capacity is losing. That is because we don't know how to get the priority. So therefore, even 6 channels are working together. The Buddha gave the technique. Never mind, you at the beginning, with your willpower, the determination and the ambition and the motivation and will and everything, try to get the primary object. Once you isolated it, slowly you can let others also happening, and still your mindfulness will be intact. So that is how the impossibility become a possibility through the mindfulness, because mindfulness is such a it is characteristic, is such a good qualities. Venerable Jnanaponika, when he's writing The Power of Mindfulness, he says mindfulness is a shy character. If you are considered as a personality, it will never propose itself. It is always going behind, and solitude and inner peace is what it likes. Instead of mindfulness, if you take the Shraddha or the faith, it is very advertising kind of a character, show off, and it is leading to quick results. And so you will be happy to deal more with Shraddha because it is jumping and ultimately giving so much of so-called results. And the virya, the energy also, outwardly extrovert character, and it is whenever you call for duties, it come and do in jumps, and concentration and wisdom all are the same. But the mindfulness is such, is inwardly very shy, never come out. And he says, The Buddha is the only person who recognized the potential value of the mindfulness, and then he himself asked mindfulness to come and take the chair. While others are really fighting to get the chair. But the mindful never give a fight, but it is behind. But the Buddha, he selected the priority, asked the mindful to come and take the chair. Until that, it was shy. But when Jnanaponika, verily he says, once the mindfulness taken the chair, it will never get down from the chair. Never. So at any cost, but you have to give the priority, and that is your primary, the important task if you have the well-being of yourself. And people are very happy, you may find 1,000 and 1,000 pages written on miracles of the Saddha, miracle of the faith, and the miracle of the energy, the concentration and the wisdom, but he says it is incredible, unpredictable. But the mindfulness never lose the confidence, never let you down. Once you introduce, keep on catching the momentum without much of propaganda, without much of advertisement, without much of show off, and it is brightening internal qualities. So even though you feel, you may claim the multitask people can't do meditation, multitask people can't think about any emancipation, it is true from the outlook, but if you systematically start with the mindfulness, one day you will understand while all the six, the seeing, hearing, smelling, touching and all the things happen, you can pick, you can select the priority and understand whenever you give the priority to one the others are just being neglected of, and that will dominate. Once it is dominated, you have a certain amount of choice, so that you are not going to give a priority for so much of dramatic and transgressing kind of defilements. Instead, you can let it calm down. So when it is calming down, first and foremost step, as far as the vijnana is concerned, you will understand so far in the samsara, in this perpetuation of the death and the birth, you try your best to keep the vijnana, the consciousness, busy with the sensuous objects and your faculties. But once you develop certain amount of mindfulness, you can understand that is happening even now, but your effort, your diligent effort is to keep one track as much as possible prominent, so that you can understand, instead of fertilizing, instead of giving the food, you try to wean them off and understand how to keep one track. And ultimately, whenever the mind falls calm and collected upon that particular selected track, you will see the mind become, for the first time, cut off from the faculties, cut off from the external sensuous impingements. And your eyes are closed, but even there won't be any mental images. Maybe sounds are there, you feel they are at a distance, but still you can keep the track with the in-breath and out-breath. And smell and the taste may not be much applicable unless otherwise there are some mental projections, and the other sensations also there, thinking also there, but you can keep it there. So you can temporarily, you are not connected with the senses, not connected with the eye, ear, nose, tongue and the mind. Body also you are pointed to at the end of the nostril or top of your upper lip or in the abdomen, and based upon that the vijnana is thriving. It has a balance, there's a equanimity, and when you go there, this is yet another kind of vijnana or consciousness. It is conscious about that particular moment so thoroughly, so it can forget about the rest of the world. So that means it can forget about all the faculties and all the impingements, and you find that is a kind of equilibrium. It will never come accidentally, you have to be very tactful. You have to go in a systematic way. Sometimes it is being justified from the samatha way, as well as you can justify it in the vipassana way. It is called that you are as if absorbed into that particular object, and with the help of that particular object, you can do away with all the other faculties and all the other external stimuli. So when that happens, you see yet another aspect, or yet another equilibrium, yet another balanced state of the consciousness, and it is in the meditation jargon, it is called non-materialistic pleasure. You feel when and where your mind falls calm and collected on that particular object. And that also can be named the related, connected, normal consciousness is indriya baddha, related with the senses. Now it is cut off from the senses. Not completely total cut off, but you aloof. You get the solitude, and that vijnana already recognized before the enlightenment of the Buddha. That was a already known fact. Even to the ascetic Siddhartha, he went to the teachers and they taught him how to go to that, even to the non-materialistic spheres. But ultimately, the unenlightened Bodhisattva, the Buddha to be, the Siddhartha, he himself recognized even the mind come up to that kind of an equilibrium, that is not the ultimate. Even though it is celestial, even though it is frictionless, even though it is contented, even though it is not come free of charge, it is not. Because whenever you season it, whenever you season the mind, even though you strategically cut off from the senses as well as the external stimuli, there is a kind of an influx. There's a kind of underlying tendencies. It fulfills the consciousness, and these things are not coming from outside. Then he found there is something coming from coming from within. So being that is so, he never ready to say that he had the mastery on the vijnana. Yes, he found that his understanding is incomplete. So he took leave from the teachers and went into that, calmed down his mind, let the mind to be collected and focused on that thing, and observe that state of mind. That means another layer, another kind of booster dose of mindfulness to be awakened, to be vigilant, to be diligent to such a balanced state of mind. So it is a matter of seasoning. After a long time, he came to know, even though there are no external impingements like visual objects, sounds and kind of thing, but mind is so engaged. The whirlpool is running. The momentum is there. So, consciously you are not contributing. Consciously you are not fertilizing it, but its momentum, its speed is still continuing. So, then onward, taken this non-materialistic kind of consciousness as a subject of meditation, going further, one has to be very aware of the magical nature of the mind. And whenever there is no proper concrete object, it make objects, or it make the nimitta or meditative, the mental objects, so that perpetuation is happen through its own imagery, its hallucination, its own mind-made objects. So then it happened the Buddha to understand there is another layer of kind of defilements which are embedded, and when and where the influx is, the external stimuli stops, these influxes are going to work. So that understanding There you have to understand with strategically you have to do away with the materiality. That means close your eyes to keep the visual objects. Don't worry about or keep away from the sounds, no smelling, no tasting. And the body also there, but you are not much concerned about that. No ripples in the mentality, and observe what is happening. So when that is happening, when and where these external things are calmed down, the Buddha in the Cetana Sutta, he says, even though there is no income of the external stimuli, the mind either dwell upon its own Cetana, that means ambitious, will, some people translate it as fabrication, mental preparation, that is the sankhara that we talk about, they are coming the uninvited. And the the consciousness mind, dealing with them, ultimately the continuity happens. And therefore, Cetana, the volitional activities, Venerable Jnanananda put it as mental preparations, and yet another name came from the West as fabrications. A lot of fabrications are happening in the mind. These fabrications are true to type of your egoistic idea. It's true to type of your conceit and true to type of your desires. So you have to observe when as if you are controlling the other controllable variables, and when it is happening, the mind is not much directly related with the concrete aspect, the mental, these cetana, proliferations and all the kind of thing. Or otherwise, there may be some pakappana, that means creative thinking as to be benevolent to other people, compassionate to other people, not to fall into sickness, and not to tarnish your good name, and know about what is happening in the world and the cosmic spheres, and thinking about your relatives, all the kind of things usually known as good, usually known as benevolent things, appear like, that is called kappana, that is kind of bubbling in the mind. They appear like friends. They appear like very good things, because it is thinking about the compassionate to the other people, or to be healthy, or not to get bad name, or to help your dear and near ones, or to know what is happening in the world outside. So when these things are happening, if you are to recognize what a nice thing, now I can understand all the good things in my mind, I am becoming a saint, or I am a Samaritan, and kind of going to entertain them, if you are going to cling them, that itself become a food for the vijnana to continue. So can someone go to this kind of disconnected kind of consciousness to the senses, but still let the bubbles come up, let the thoughts happen, to see them as not me, not mine, not myself, and that is the way you can wean it off. Or whenever the will happens, whenever some people in the traditional Buddhist circles, whenever the freely mind is solitude and in calm, it think like, what about noting whatever happening as anicca, dukkha, anatta, it may be the great meditation. So they start manipulating the mind and keep on thinking see the three characteristic is good, but they don't know it is coming out of your will. It is something artificial. And you introduce, and that become a dwelling place and footage for the consciousness to happen. Some people think that what about thinking about the repulsive nature of the body and 32 parts, and they find it is more meritorious or more crafty. It's fabricating on this kind of thing happen. Or otherwise this kind of thinking can happen. So therefore, yacha vedana, yacha vedana, yang vedeti yam pakappeti yang anuseti arambana metang hoti vijnana. The will or your this kind of so-called good thinking or your underlying tendencies, one or the other will become the food or footing for the consciousness to happen. All these three, from its outlook, appear like good. And you feel like recognizing with it. You feel like assuming with it. You feel like claiming it as me, mine and soul. And that is the way, instead of weakening the consciousness, you are nourishing it, you are fertilizing it. Ultimately, you lose your concentration, you lose your mindfulness and you lose your confidence. You get up and ultimately you will be entangled with so much of mystics. So much of, you will think that you are a special being. You can go up to that level and daydreaming starts. So, as far as the tricky nature, as far as the, what you call this magical nature of the vijnana, the Buddha has mapped very nicely when and where you go to this kind of consciousness, where mind is isolated, free, serene and calm, and just to observe, you must make sure you are not introducing anything out of your own will. Anything you add, that will become a footage, that will become a counterpart, another object for the vijnana to hang. Aramana metang hoti vijnana, and upon that it is growing. Or any benevolent thinking. And suppose that you can manage with understanding and with determination not to add any chetana, volitional activities, not to add any kind of thinking, but still the anusaya, that is called latent tendencies, are going to work. So when and where this anusaya happens, they are usually out of context. It is all of a sudden things are happening. So when and where it happens, since it is coming within, it appears very touchy. It is appear very feelingful. Often you recognize this as your real essence of your ego, essence of your atta, and not to claim, not to assume them. You must have a special preparation, otherwise this anusaya and asava, both the influxes and underlying tendencies, are going to make the library shots for the magazines to run. You get from all the existing thing and going on, they are whatever appearing as anusaya, it appears like in the three-dimensional real figures, real thing. Ultimately you start negotiating with that and you lose mindfulness, concentration, and the vijnana take the upper hand, and vijnana take the mean advantage of it to play with. So therefore, as far as you have avidya, ignorance, and as far as you have this fabricating as a character, or mental preparation as a character, or volitional activity as a character, vijnana will never get weaned off. Vijnana always find some kind of a nutriment, and that is how, and what the vijnana going to do is, it projects nama-rupa, that is to say, name and the form, and with that nama-rupa, the name and the form, with the vijnana, become reciprocal each other, at two bundles of pipes, they touch each other and maintain the relationship. So when and where you remove this nama-rupa, which is mental projections, sometimes appear like a half dreams, sometimes hallucination, sometimes like dreams, and as far as you are not get moved by them, as far as you are ready to unassume them, as far as you are ready to disavow them, disown them, so that will force then the vijnana find no hanging, nothing to hang, and ultimately when and where this anusaya become weaker, the vijnana itself appear like cornered and feel unsafe, feel lost, disoriented, and therefore in the deep meditation, whenever these things happens, unless otherwise you go prepared, what you do is you will open the eyes and let the others visual objects to come, sounds to come, and soon they come, you get the orientation. That means you reimplant the ego. You again refix your conceit, the measurement and all the orientation, and something to be meddled with, the desire. So even that such a thing happen, no harm. Next day when you go to the deep layers, you must assume not to disturb this trend and go deeper and deep. Ultimately one day you will go, the vijnana, the consciousness, there is no manipulations, there is no manifestation. So it is becoming its pure form, uninterrupted, and it is running by itself, and it is not belong to particular person. And it is the Buddha recognized this as anidasana vijnana, non-manifested kind of consciousness, and that is the bare minimum nature, and when and where you claim it, you get hooked up with. Whenever you disclaim it, it won't be a burden. So that kind of refined vijnana is see-through. It has no any concrete this thing. And Buddha says that each and everyone naturally having this, naturally carrying this, but they don't appreciate it because it is not dramatic. It is not eventful. So therefore you are always going for the eventful, dramatic thing. So therefore this vijnana is never recognized and never been appreciated. So the Buddha says, Pabassara midam bhikkhave chittang agantuke upakilittang tanchako asutoto putujjano nappajanati so asutoto putujjanassa samadhi bhavana chitta bhavana natthiti vadana. The Buddha says whether you are a meditator or not, whether you are a male or female, whether you are Buddhist or non-Buddhist, this equilibrium, the very non-manifested kai vijnana is already endowed with. But the person who is claiming for multitasking and all the kind of this thing, they never recognize that such a potential is embedded, but that potential is outer layer is always mixed up with this transgressional kind of defilements and desire, conceit and all the kind of thing. They see only that negative points in one's character. Therefore they never appreciate they have the humanness, humanity underneath, but they see something to be worried. And they are searching for something to be worried. That is why mind is associating the past. Whenever the mind is associating the past, it is regret. Is the invariable result. Whenever mind is projecting future, the excitement is the one. But whenever it is in the middle, no excitement, no anxiety, but eventless. There is no much of attraction. So under such mindset, because he is not well instructed, he is not prepared, there is no hope regarding meditation. There is no hope regarding concentration, no hope regarding mindfulness. They think, I am not suitable, I am inferior, I can't do it, because he or she is believing only the mistakes, only the darker side, only the defilements. So therefore, this quotation you can find in the Anguttara Nikaya book of 1, and it appears like Buddha is discouraging everyone for meditation. But that is not the point. After that, he says, the second part, very constructive, Pabasaramidam bhikkhave chittang agantuke upakilitte. Amongst each and everyone, at the crux, at the middle, there is a bright, translucent, The serenity is there. But it is covered with the defilements. Those who do not know it, those who have listened it, those who don't prepare for that, never try. But if you are heard of, if you are prepared, if you have any experience, you will simply penetrate through the outer crux, and then you easily go into this bliss inside. For people with that kind of positive thinking, people with that kind of the forward thinking, I prescribe for them only the mindfulness and the concentration can happen. So therefore, if you are looking at the bad side of the society, if you are looking at the bad side of your own character, that is, you are entertaining inferiority complex. Under such circumstances, you are the very person undermining your humanity, and never you can expect any good sympathy or forgiveness to the others, because your mind is sick. It is not healthy. And therefore, one day you have to understand outer crux. It is smeared with some kind of defilement. That is natural. But the mindfulness and the concentration must be enough to penetrate into that. And then you see, internally, when you go deeper and deeper, the purity is there. The solitude nature, always pure. If you have that kind of thing, you may see very bad episodes, discouraging episodes, and defiled episode. That does not mean you have no potential. Whatever the defilement happens, we'll say some sensuous desire overwhelmed, or the anger, or rage, anger and the ill will, overwhelming. Sometimes sleepiness, sometimes the regret and the excitement, sometimes the doubt, overwhelming. At that moment, you must understand, this is not the moment for you to be concentrated, but to be aware, my stream of consciousness is overwhelmed by that particular thing. That is coming to go. They are not permanent. They become permanent because of your permanent notion, your perception. You think that once such a thing happen, I will be desperate and I am discouraged and mind become very inferior. But if you believe they are going to come to go, you will just mark time till the better opportunity happen again, you can start. And when that happens, you will understand whenever the desire happens, what to do. If your mindfulness and the concentration is not strong enough, you can say the repulsivity of the body as a counterfeit, the antidote, and samatha way, in the conventional concentration meditation, you use this antidote. Otherwise, if the mindfulness and the concentration is enough, that very two tools will replace this the asubha bhavana or repulsivity. So when the hatred and ill will happen, you have to use the loving kindness, or you see the hatred as hatred through the mindfulness and the concentration. So you have two techniques, samatha techniques and the vipassana techniques. And when the sleepiness happen, the light sign or the perception of light as the samatha technique, or otherwise noting the very sleepiness. When the regret and the excitement happens, you have to recollect the virtues of the Buddha. And then your mind will be come back to the center and calm and collected. Or otherwise you can understand very nature of it. Or when the doubt happens, you have to develop the rapture or rapturous feeling, or otherwise still the mindfulness and the concentration when cut through it. When such a thing happens, one day you will learn the art, when and where such a difficulties happen, how to compensate it, how to deal with them with your own ways and means. So that is what we call the seasoned yogis, or they are mature enough. Of course, they will be hurt, they will be disturbed by the onset of the defilements, but find ways and means with the positive thinking. Ultimately, what will happen is this. Instead of these nivaranas or hindrances, you develop the faith, you develop the energy, mindfulness, the concentration and the wisdom. But ultimately what happened is now you cling to them. Then the vijnana take the food as the footing, your pride, your conceit, and your egoistic idea, but now you are a different person. You are not carried away by the 5 hindrances. Instead, you are carried away by your own boasting. I have my faith, I have my energy, I have my concentration, mindfulness and wisdom. And that enough for the mind, the vijnana to take the show. So the Buddha says, you use these 5 faculties in order to get rid of this bad or transgressing kind of defilements. Now what happens is, you are being obsessed with the desire to the faith, with the desire to energy, with the desire to mindfulness, concentration and the wisdom. So the day you understand it, now you see you have replaced the worst thing, but the tools you have taken are very efficient, but now you have attachment for the tools. But what is the technique? What is the way? What is the way out? You see, whenever the desire happens, and if your tool of faith or energy or mindfulness or concentration or wisdom going to work, one day you will see the fading of part of the desire. And then you feel hilarious feeling, and you feel that Saddha is setting in, or faith is setting in, energy is setting in, mindfulness is setting in, concentration and wisdom, and then so much so it is there, and the sensuous desire is fading off. And they are, with the help of these 5 good faculties, you see the fading of part of the desire or defilements, hindrances. So, are we ready, or are you ready to see the fading part of the faith, fading part of the energy, fading part of the fading episode of the concentration, mindfulness and the wisdom? If you have the attachment, if you have the clinging, if you have gone into it and adorn them as my own thing, you will never be happy when and where your faith is fading off. When and where your energy is lost, where battery discharged, your mindfulness be ending up, and the concentration is scattered off. Your wisdom is gone for 6. And under such circumstances, you can see how the vijnana become excited, and you will be desperate and telling that my meditation completely distracted and what to do, and yesterday it was very good and today it is very bad. You have forgotten they are just tools. And you see, when the building is putting up, there are a lot of scaffolding. Without scaffolding, you can't continue with the building. But if you are going to this scaffolding as a dwelling place for you to, forgetting about this temporary structure, so what will happen in the construction work? They are happening in such a way you can dwell upon that, but they are not for dwelling, just to be there in order to finish it. And that is the point where the vijnana play its magic more in a trickier way than with the 5 hindrances. You replace 5 hindrances with the 5 faculties, and you must be ready now to see the end of these so-called good 5 faculties. That is the point. You are getting the second reinforcement, the second galvanizing effect to the vijnana, and unshakable, undisturbed nature. So, in samatha meditation, that technique is not available. In samatha, when and where you assume any jhana or any this thing, you definitely recognize with it. You definitely assume with it. Ultimately, you claim, I am so and so. You don't know how to use the disclaimer. You don't know how to disavow them. You don't know how to disown them, and you will think it is unspiritual to disavow them, disown them. But the vipassana is telling it is just a tool. Don't get attached with them. This is the way vijnana is getting the its own fabrications, its own mental preparation to make them good, beautiful, and assumable. So the day you will understand what is the proper technique, what is the proper way to look at it, you will see all the mishaps in meditative life is the fading off of the faith, fading off of your energy, fading off your mindfulness, concentration and wisdom, but still there's a point, there's a angle, you can see the beauty or good part of this fading of good faculties till you, if you can maintain uninterrupted mind. When the faith is setting in, of course it is good and beautiful. When it is working, of course good. But when it is fading off, you commit suicide. You become so desperate and discouraged, but instead the Buddha says, the faith you use to get rid of that kind of defilement, but faith also subject to changes. When it is fading off, can you observe it with the equipoised mind, equanimous mind? We have that kind of a value, that kind of a understanding or unshaky mind, or are we appreciating that kind of a unshaky mind? That's a kind of a vijnana, it's a kind of a consciousness you have to develop so that even the good qualities are eroding off, fading off, you know it's a temporary issue. Now it is eroding, again it can come. And if you have that kind of thing, you develop kind of a vijnana, and that the defilement can't tackle it. The armies of Mara cannot tackle it because it knows the game to find a reason to be glad under any circumstances. So that is the difference between the other yogis and the vipassana yogis. Anything when mishap happens, of course it is very dark, very gloomy and very discouraging. But if you put it in a yoniso manasikara, radical reflection, you put it in a wise reflection, even they are good meditative faculties, they are subject to change. So when it is fading off, can I master it? Can I season it to keep the mind unshaken? And that kind of a consciousness ultimately entertain the signlessness. No sign of regret, no sign of appreciation, no sign of assuming anything happen, it get the distance and observe as if someone else. Whenever this signlessness happen, that means your the mindfulness is deep going, penetrating into the unmanifested, the true to type kind of a vijnana, and you feel so relaxed, and there is nothing, no tension can happen, no frustration can happen, because whenever the frustration happen, you can take it as an object of meditation. Whenever the monotonous or boredom happen, you take it as an object of meditation, and you see, unless otherwise you manage to this gross kind of defilements, and you cut through the gross kind of defilement, you never exposed to this kind of subtle mental aspects or mental factors. When it happens, if you are not skillful enough to take them as raw material and practice, you will never cut through into that deep layers of the vijnana, consciousness, and without letting that deep consciousness to happen, all the juggleries the mind going to do are known as sankhara. That is the meaning of sankhara. Sankhara means it is very crafty. It's fabricating. The preparations are there, it's free of charge. All of a sudden it come and give the consultation. And ultimately what happens, it make the unturbulent flow turbulent. And that is why you call the vortex, as if it's a pure copper, the current is very straightforward, it is called superconductive. Whenever it is mixed up with either desire or conceit or ego, that is as if there are some other zinc and other iron and other kind of mixed up, and then and there it is reducing the conductivity, make a friction, and the thing will be heated and flow will be disturbed, and the resistance will be developed, and that is how whenever the consciousness become true to type, if the sankhara, if the fabrication, if the mental preparation is going to work, you have to really understand how they are working each other. Whenever the fabrications are happening, Vijnana take the mean advantage and the show is happening. But anyway, through this explanation we can go there, but when you are really facing it, when you are really under the nose, when such a situation happen, to get the correct perspective, get the radical reflection, get the wise reflection, I would say it's a rather coincidence. It's a rather coincidence. It is impromptu. It's an improvisation. All of a sudden happens, then only you come to know, so far what I was doing was to give kind of a nutriment for the consciousness. Today I see how to tackle this kind of situation. It is not a matter of the content, it's a matter of outlook. It's a matter of observation. So your mind is ready for this kind of electric change or coincidence, and that is what the yogi means. The meditator must be such, ready for the moment to happen, the phenomena to happen, without any premeditative ideas, to use your own ways and means, not to get committed even at the feeling level, or perception level, or manipulations, preparation or fabrication. These are the three. As far as the materiality is concerned, the feeling, perception and the volitional activities. And as I try to maintain throughout the last few days, some people are prone to one thing, the other people are not. So you have to understand your personality trait, whether you are prone to recognize this experience through feelings or perception or fabrication. So the day you master it, the feelings, you will understand hedonic, your ability to understand others' feeling will be well refined. You can understand why people are behaving like that, because they feel the world like that. The moment you understand the perception, you will be a great orator, your communication capacity will be double-fold. The moment you will understand the trap of the volitional activities, the fabrication and mental preparation, you will take an oath to be more morally shame and morally fearful, and your restrainment of faculties will be a very easy then onward, because this is the crux. Through your fabrication only, you lose your moral integrity. You lose your sensuous controlling of your faculty. So the moment you see it, how nicely the feeling, perception and volitional activities support the consciousness to continue, and you definitely understand these as your abilities or creativities, but the Buddha says they are really, really destructive. And these are the attribution you gave to the omnipotent, omnipresent God. So therefore, people, those assume the God, they call it a creator. But the Buddha says, if there is such a culprit, I would say it's a destructor. It is the one giving all the fertilizer for this perpetuation. So therefore, understand the destructor as a destructor, creator as the creator. So you will not only restrain from killing, stealing and sexual misconduct or verbal misdeeds, you will see under the carpet circuit. How do you facilitate, how you fertilize, how you proliferate through your feelings or perception and volitional contribution, and no second person responsible. No second person can stop you. Only the thing is you have to see them in a correct perspective and let it happen. Again and again, when it is happening, whether you like it or not, the ability is increasing, the power of this, the vicious, perverted defilements are becoming weaker and weaker and weaker. So it is says that even in your psycho analysis, when you have a free association, more and more your difficulty and anxious to come out, the psychological wounds are healing. More and more it is catharsis, putting out is being healing. So therefore, understanding your weaknesses, understanding your defilements and understanding your fabrications, Buddha says, I can't take responsibilities. But I can give you the mirror, through that you can see it. When it is coming, let come out. Let them come out. More and more this catharsis happen. Natural healing is happen. Sometimes it's called dassana pahatabba, getting rid of defilement by just seeing them as they are in its natural habitats. So only the vipassana yogis have this special opportunity to go and see, not in the animals in the zoo, but they are in their game sanctuaries as they are in their natural shape, and have that visit again and again, and while getting the theory understanding and the deductive knowledge, when you go there, it's a marvelous visit. It's a nice picnic, and you will never see teledrama hereafter. You will never go for films. You will never go for novels, because this is very novelty. You have so much of thing inside, you don't know how to entertain. That is why you see external recreation, external kind of thing. So therefore, moment you see through this disentanglement, you see Dhamma is working. It is a unique way. By looking at the Dhamma, you can see the Buddha. Ultimately, you will be the Buddha. Maybe you all be Buddha. Thank you very much for listening to this talk.